You tell yourself it's a small decision. What to study, what to say, which opportunity to take. But somehow, your mind turns it into a maze. You imagine every possible outcome, every possible mistake, every version of your future self judging the choice you make. So you think longer and longer, and somehow, the more you think, the harder the decision becomes. The strange part is this: you're not actually afraid of the decision. You're afraid of something much deeper hiding behind it. And once you see it, overthinking starts to make a very different kind of sense. Overthinking rarely looks dramatic from the outside. Most of the time, it looks like quiet hesitation. You open a message and rewrite the reply 3 times. You research something simple for 2 hours. You imagine choosing one path, then immediately picture the regret that could follow. At first, it feels like you're being responsible, careful, thoughtful. But slowly, something changes. Decisions stop feeling like choices. They start feeling like tests. Tests where one wrong answer could permanently damage your life. Psychologists sometimes call this decision paralysis, when the brain becomes so focused on avoiding mistakes that choosing anything starts to feel dangerous. But the deeper issue usually isn't the decision itself, it's the identity attached to it. Because every decision quietly asks a question, not just what should I do, but who am I going to become if I choose this? And that question can feel terrifying. If you overthink decisions, it doesn't mean you're weak or indecisive. In fact, many people who overthink are often highly self-aware. Your brain is simply trying to protect something important, your sense of self. In psychology, there's a concept called identity preservation. Your brain constantly tries to maintain a stable story about who you are, not because the story is perfect, but because it's familiar. And familiarity feels safe. So when a decision threatens to change that story, your mind slows everything down. It pauses, replays possibilities, searches for certainty that may never come. Because deep down, your brain isn't just evaluating options, it's protecting the version of you it already understands. But to really understand overthinking, you need to see what the brain is actually doing behind the scenes. Inside your brain, there are 2 systems constantly working together. One moves quickly, the other moves slowly. Psychologist Daniel Kahneman described them as System 1 and System 2 thinking. System 1 is fast and intuitive. System 2 is slow and analytical. When you overthink, System 2 takes over completely. But here's the deeper layer most people miss. Overthinking isn't just analysis, it's identity simulation. Your brain is running mental simulations of different future versions of you. Think of it like a movie editor. Every possible decision creates a different storyline. If you take this job, one version of you exists. If you move to a different city, another version appears. Each choice quietly eliminates other identities, and the brain doesn't like losing options. This triggers something called loss aversion, a bias discovered in behavioral psychology. Loss aversion means the brain feels the pain of losing something twice as strongly as the pleasure of gaining something. So when you make a decision, your brain isn't just gaining one path, it feels like it's losing all the others. And that emotional loss makes the brain hesitate. It keeps searching for a perfect decision that preserves every possibility. But such a decision rarely exists, which is why overthinking loops begin. Breaking the cycle of overthinking doesn't mean forcing faster decisions. It means changing how your brain interprets decisions. Here are 4 psychological principles that help. What to do. Treat decisions as experiments, not identity-defining events. Instead of thinking, this choice defines my future, try thinking, this is a temporary test. Why it works in the brain. This reduces identity threat, lowering activity in the brain's threat detection systems like the amygdala. When a decision feels reversible, the brain relaxes. Real-life example. Instead of committing to a career path forever, you treat the next 6 months as exploration. Your brain stops seeing the decision as permanent, and suddenly, thinking becomes easier. Give yourself a specific thinking window. For example, 20 minutes of focused decision analysis. Then stop. Why it works in the brain. Overthinking thrives on open-ended loops. The brain keeps searching for more information because it believes the problem is still unresolved. Time boundaries close that loop. Real-life example. You set a timer before researching a purchase or opportunity. When the timer ends, you choose based on what you know, not what you might know later. Ask one question. Which choice would I regret not trying 5 years from now? Why it works in the brain. This reframes the decision from avoiding mistakes to avoiding missed opportunities. It shifts from loss aversion to long-term identity growth. Real-life example. Someone debating whether to start a creative project asks themselves, would I regret never seeing what this idea could become? Often, the answer becomes clear. Limit your options to 2 or 3 maximum, not 10. Why it works in the brain. Too many options overload the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for evaluation and planning. This creates decision fatigue. Fewer options restore clarity. Real-life example. Instead of researching 20 universities or careers, you narrow it down to the top 3. The brain shifts from endless comparison to actual choice. You can think of decisions like standing in front of a forest. Each path disappears into the trees. From where you stand, none of them show the full future. And that uncertainty feels uncomfortable. But here's the quiet truth. Your brain keeps trying to find the perfect path, the one with no regret, no uncertainty, no identity loss. But life doesn't work like that. Every path changes you, and every path closes other possibilities. The goal isn't to avoid that. The goal is to choose a direction and let life reveal what the map couldn't. Because identity isn't discovered before the decision. It's built after it. If you overthink decisions, it usually means you care deeply about your life, about who you become. And that isn't a flaw. It's awareness. But awareness without movement becomes a cage. At some point, every thoughtful mind has to accept a simple reality. You cannot think your way into the perfect future. You can only walk into it, one imperfect decision at a time. And strangely, the moment you start moving, the mind often becomes quieter, because the brain finally stops imagining life and starts living it.